Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the virtual RedBar Global Meetup. Yesterday, I'm sure those of you who were in attendance will agree was a lot. There was a lot of great stuff happening, a lot of really cool experiences, and I'm really looking forward to today, and also taking a nap afterwards. So, good morning, everybody. Adam, I'm going to let Adam go ahead and introduce our panelists. These are all of the folks that are participating in this panel are RedBar members who essentially, had a problem that needed to be solved, and Vasu found a way to solve it. So, Adam, why don't you introduce our panelists, and then we'll get started.
Certainly. Well, first off, I'm staring at Greg Wirtz. I like that he's muted because I'm not really sure what he would. Oh, crap. There we go. How you doing, buddy?
Sorry about that.
Don't apologize. No. It's good to see you again. Good morning. Yeah, it's interesting. We were fortunate enough to see each other not that long ago. We did a little social distanced meetup outside at what I like to refer to as RedBar's satellite office, BLT Steak. But it was great seeing you. But a collector,
Likewise.
member, good guy, lawyer. We're not gonna hold that against you.
Yeah. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. But definitely thank you for being here today. I see Lamdin there. He's got the Magnum shirt on and then the Magnum mustache. It's nice to see you again. I know that you have been basically online with us this whole time yesterday as well, so you're probably a little burnt out and exhausted, but it's good to see you too, brother.
Likewise, my friend.
Yeah. So James's insight is valuable on a number of subjects, not just Magnum PI, obviously. So we're always lucky to have him around to basically keep us honest and drop some knowledge bombs. And then, oh God, here we come. The whale, Vasu. Now, if you don't know who Vasu is, well, that's your problem. But as the Instagram legend that is known as NYC watch collector, he's basically been keeping a lot of us sane during this quarantine period with his photos by the window, his photos of his cats. Swaggy, by the way, was a huge part of yesterday's cocktail party. He actually he petered out a little quickly. I think, what is it? He was looking for fish in the goggles, right?
He just heard his name and now he's meowing.
Is he really? I have that effect on cats.
Yeah.
But again, a collector whose focus is basically on the finer things in life, but with a nod towards independence. You've got a collection that I have to say is one of the best out there. And if I can say this too, it's easy to be jealous, but I love the fact that you share the pieces that you have with everyone. There's a difference between showing off and a difference between sharing passion. And what you do is definitely the latter.
Appreciate that.
But I will leave it at that then for now, folks. I'm going to kind of be in the background monitoring questions and that stuff. And again, if there's something that comes up that we think, is vital and valuable to the conversation at hand, I'll jump in. Otherwise, we can save stuff till the end.
Great. So, Vasu, we'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us this early on a Sunday morning to talk about something as boring as insurance. But I promise you that I'm going to do my level best to make insurance exciting and interesting for everyone who bothered to join in. So, right off the bat, the first thing that I want to say is that without RedBar, there would be no WAC. So this whole thing started because of the hundreds of Wednesdays that I've attended with the community in New York City at the Honeycomb Hideout, which I still don't think we can tell anyone where it is, even though everyone knows where the fuck it is. I started, one day I woke up probably about 2 years ago. I looked at my collection and I said, holy shit, I should probably get insurance. And I called my State Farm agent. And when I told her how much I had in watches, the woman nearly had a heart attack and died. And her exact words to me were, what is that, honey? You got some Rolexes over there? And I'm like, yeah, something like that. And so she was not willing to take on the risk of my collection. I got introduced to a number of other insurance agents. For one reason or another, it just didn't work. It was either because, you know, I didn't own my primary residence and I was living in a rental building, or I couldn't bundle my home, auto. I'm never going to own a car. I live in New York. I'm a millennial. And so for one reason or another, I couldn't get insurance. And I came to RedBar the following week and I started asking everyone at RedBar, hey, what do you guys do for insurance? And I kept hearing the same thing over and over again, which was, it's a pain in the ass, man. Unless I've just got a couple of pieces that I can add on as a rider to my homeowner's policy, I'm severely underinsured. And so most people do what I do, which is I bought a safe, I bought a security system, I have 2 cameras that are constantly trained on my safe. And I'm literally logging into my cameras, you know, when I'm on vacation every 30 minutes to make sure no one has broken into my apartment and is fucking with my watches. And that just seems like a stupid way to live. And so, you know, truly, I want to thank RedBar and the whole community, not just for giving me the opportunity to tell you guys about what we've built today, but more importantly, for having helped to craft this entire thing. It literally would not have happened without the community. And so this truly is a community solution built by the community. And so before we jump into the whole panel, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of, you know, what the problems were that I heard and that we tried to solve. So the first thing was, you know, most of us are fairly young, fairly tech savvy people. We don't like filling out PDF forms. We don't like filling out paper forms. No one wants to talk to anybody, right? And so the first thing was this needed to be like a super sleek mobile solution. That's sort of what we've built. So if you go onto the app stores, either Android or iOS, you can download the app and you can see it feels more like you're playing a little game with your watches rather than trying to get insured. And so that was the first thing that we wanted to do. Next thing is I'm not going down to Diamond District on 47th Street with all of my watches, asking some guy who has no idea what the fuck a Gronfeld is to appraise my watch. Like, that's insanity. But that's really what insurance companies expect of you today. They want you to go get things appraised by people who have no idea what you even have. So you're really just paying some guy $20 and saying, hey, listen, man, you know, put down $100,000 for my Tiffany 5711. And the guy's going, okay, cool, I'll do it. But there's no reason for that. And so one of the first things we did was we made sure that you don't need to go through any of that nonsense, because Wax has all of the data that we need to be able to value your watch. And so all you do is take a picture of it, and then you tell us what you want to appraise it for, or what you want to value it at on your insurance policy. As long as it's reasonable, we have no problem with it, right? The next thing is, you know, most of us go in and out of watches, right? I've definitely sold a lot of watches along the way, and buy watches almost every couple of months. There's something new in the collection. And so I don't want to have to call some guy at my insurance company and explain to him, hey man, you know, this watch is now out of the collection, or hey, my 5711 is now worth 2x what it was valued at a couple months ago. And so we let you do all of this right through the app. You just click in, you say you want to get rid of one of your watches and you've added something new. It takes 2 seconds and we've updated your policy for you. Next thing is, everyone's a little different, and we'll talk about this as one of the first questions I have for the rest of the panel. But everybody has different things that they're worried about when it comes to insurance. And at the end of the day, look, insurance is sort of a necessary evil, right? Nobody wants to splurge on insurance. This isn't fun. But at the end of the day, when you get to a certain level of watches, you just want to make sure that you're not going to end up in a worst case scenario where everything gets lost or stolen. And so we give you a ton of different options around the deductible that you can choose, so that you're able to pick exactly what works for you. Finally, I also wanted to make sure that everything that I own could be insured under one policy. I don't want to have to do some things through there, some things through another one. And so with Wax, whether you're trying to insure trading cards or handbags or sneakers or watches, you can do all of it through the same app, through the same policy. It's all just done with one click, and then you're done. And the last thing I heard a lot from people in the community was shipping insurance, right? So a lot of us sell something, we ship it out to somebody else. Oh my God, I had this happen actually with a Frederic Constant. It was the second watch I ever bought. After a while, I sold it. and FedEx lost my package I'm pretty sure they stole my package, and they gave me back $110 for this watch because they said, fuck you, buddy. That's life, right? And so what do most of us do? We call someone like Lamdin and we say, hey man, can you get me an insured shipping label from Parcel Pro so that this thing is covered? And I'm sure James is nice enough for most of the guys in the community that he actually does that, as are many other dealers in the industry who, if they have a Parcel Pro account, they'll take care of you. But the average collector has no idea what to do. And so they're running around trying to figure out how to insure their shipment. So with Wax, if you have a policy with us, whether you ship that out to get it serviced or whether you ship it out because you sold it, as long as you're the person responsible for shipping, that watch is covered up until the point that it reaches its destination, and then it becomes someone else's problem, right? So those were the 6 things that we wanted to solve based on feedback from the community. And that's really what we've done. And so I'll leave this up, but I want to just get started with talking to everyone else on this panel. And so the first question I have for you guys is, when you think about when you're thinking about insurance, what is the scenario that you are worried about the most? So for some people, it's, well, I don't want to get mugged on the street. For some people, it's, I don't want to have my entire collection taken from me. So I'm curious, starting with Greg, when you thought about insurance, what is it that worried you the most and sort of got you to eventually decide to buy insurance, whether it was with us or a previous policy? Greg frozen? He looks frozen.
Seems like Greg is frozen.
Let's start with Lamdin then.
Yeah, let's start with Lamdin.
Good morning, everybody. I'm James Lamdin. I'm founder of Analog Shift. I'm a founding partner of RedBar. I like watches. Vasu and I spoke a lot about this as he was developing the product, primarily because I also do specialist valuations for wristwatches for a lot of my clients. And that includes independent, private collectors, institutional collections, and for the federal government. So I have a sort of depth of understanding of how this whole thing works. And he's 100% right. It's a mess. It's a very messy situation. One valuation that I do for one client with one company will suffice, but you've got to put a different wording or different formatting for another company. Some companies will only accept a bonded appraisal. And to be clear, that's like, it's just paying to be like a justice of the peace or something. There's no actual qualifications that come from being a bonded appraiser in your state. It's all nonsensical. It's all very bureaucratic. Speaking from a collector's standpoint, the only time I've ever feared that I was going to get mugged was in Geneva, because that place is a dump. I'm not terribly worried about that, here in New York. And somebody who often wears fairly flash gold things around, people often ask me, aren't you afraid or worried about wearing that? And in New York City, everyone's just going to assume it's fake. If you're wearing a new, ceramic Batman or something like that, you're more likely to get robbed in my experience. I think the shipping one is probably the single greatest concern that I have as a collector and as a dealer. Of course, I've got my own solutions through my business, and it hasn't been a concern for years. But as a collector, I can tell you that shipping packages of value across the country or across the world is a scary thing. So insuring shipments is probably my number one. And then secondly would be, possible travel loss, not mugging, but, having something lifted from you, while you're staying elsewhere in a hotel, something like that, especially if you travel with more than just the watch on your wrist.
Got it. We get Greg back, or is he still lost?
I think he looks like he's not back yet. So
I can keep talking with you, Vasu.
Yeah. So my next question for you was going to be, you had a little insurance roundtable that you put together, I think maybe 6 or 9 months ago, with a number of members of the community. I'm curious what came out of that. What did you learn by putting that thing together? What are people looking for? How are you thinking about this as someone who is selling fairly expensive watches on a daily basis? I'd leave it fairly open-ended, but I'm curious what came of that.
Well, I think it really comes down to the chance of, we've been sort of it's been a pull opportunity for us. You know, I don't advertise that I do valuations. I don't advertise that I can appraise watches or even connect you with a preferred vendor, which was sort of the outline of that, was trying to feel out what our clients and what local collectors might derive value from if we were to offer some sort of additional package or warm introduction or whatever it might be. What I was really trying to feel out there was what the perceived needs were versus what the realistic needs are. I'm on the other side. I have been called in to be an expert witness in a missing package case, and you know, that's what I do when I charge for a valuation. That then goes to the insurance company, and then I'm sort of on the hook to come and defend that position on behalf of my client should it happen, and it has happened. It's very rare, fortunately, but it does happen. Furthermore, you have real differences between the retail replacement value and, you know, actual replacement value, particularly if you're talking about something that's highly subjective, rare, vintage in particular. These are things that, you know, become hard to defend. And as we all know, insurance companies don't really want to pay you. So you have to have a product and a broker that's going to be in your camp. And I think that having a product like yours that really impresses me, and that you can sort of choose your, you know, what you're looking for right from the get, that already solves half the problem, because you don't have to defend your position when you're making, you know, when you're saying how much you'd like it to be insured for.
Right.
But from the company side, what I'm really hoping to do, and I think we're off to a good start here, is have a product that you can suggest to our clients. I mean, a lot of our clients are first-time watch buyers or early in the experience, and as we all know, it's a pretty steep rabbit hole to tumble down. And before you know it, you know, you've gone from your first purchase to you have 3, 4, 5 watches worth a whole lot more than you ever thought you'd spend on anything. And I'd like to have, you know, so that was really what I did that roundtable for, was to figure out what sorts of products I could offer and suggest, or perhaps even have in-house to package with a sale.
Makes sense. Kathleen, we have any questions?
I do have questions, but Greg has returned. So I actually, there's a few questions in here that are very specific about your actual, like the services you're providing and all of that. So a lot of people are asking if this is United States only. I think I know the answer, but.
Yeah, so just so everyone understands, like, insurance is probably one of the most highly regulated industries, not just in the US, but frankly everywhere. I don't think it needs to be, but it just is. And so, you know, for example, we literally have to get licensed in all 50 states. First, someone individually within our company has to, then we have to take that individual license and then get our agency, so Wax itself, also licensed. So like literally you're talking about weeks and weeks and weeks of work. You have to get fingerprinted. Like, it's unbelievable what you have to go through just to sell insurance within the United States alone. So yes, for the time being, we're US only, but we are working on a couple of things to try and shortcut getting out of the US and going internationally as well. However, if you are a US resident, you are covered when you travel. So you can be anywhere in the world with our policy, and you will be covered for anything that happens when you're traveling. But in order to get the insurance in the first place, you do have to be a US resident. Okay.
So some very specific questions about how you compare to other insurers. Lance says he currently insures his watches with Jewelers Mutual, and how does the premium rate compare?
So I'd like to think that we are cheaper than almost everyone out there. I think Greg, you're back, right?
Yes.
Did you switch from Jewelers Mutual to Wax?
I have a couple. I was using Jewelers Mutual. It's easy to get going if you buy a brand new watch and you have the purchase price, and the value of that watch never changes. In that case, it worked out just fine. But like we know that, the world doesn't really work like that. So the pricing's pretty similar. What I liked with Wax was just all the different options with the deductible and just to be able to update it. It's just that whole, it's just a whole added layer to it that Jewelers Mutual didn't have. So pricing wise, I think it was in line, if not a little cheaper, but I had added a bunch of stuff, so it wasn't quite apples to apples.
Okay. And then a couple of other questions, many including comments on Greg's internet being slow. Lance also asks if in the event of a claim, would you try to find a replacement of the same watch or just issue a check?
Yeah, so almost all insurance policies are replacement first, right? And that's primarily done to prevent fraud. What you don't want to have happen is some guy, loses his watch or never had the watch to begin with, files a fraudulent claim. And so insurance companies want to replace things for you first. And that's the whole point of insurance. Is it's not for you to make money on it. It's for you to be able to make sure you get back what you lose. If they can't replace it, then they will cut you a check for the price. And so that's also where we like to help our insurance partners, as well as look to people like Analog Shift and others, where if a client actually has something that got lost or stolen, we're able to come to the people in the industry and say, hey, look, we're trying to find something like this. Can you help us do it quickly so that it just takes a couple of days to replace the watch? Because some guy at an insurance company trying to find a Universal Genève, Nina Ryan, like, Jesus, how is he even going to know where to begin? And so that's where I think having a product built by collectors for collectors just makes the whole process smoother.
Great. So we're going to address the elephant in the room. You guys have been out in the market for a little while, but our friends over at Hodinkee just launched their own insurance product, really recently. So there are quite a few people asking how your product compares with theirs, like how theirs is underwritten by Chubb, I think. So there's a couple of questions about who's underwriting Wax, but essentially everybody wants to know how your product compares to the Hodinkee offering.
Sure. Look, one, they did a pretty good job. Like it's a nice interface within their existing app. They've got an existing customer base. So for them to hit one push notification out and hit a bunch of people, really smart idea. I think that at the end of the day, who's underwriting you? Most of these A-rated insurers tend to be the same. So Chubb is a little better known in the high net worth world, but and Markel, who are the two insurers we're currently working with, are just as good. More importantly, though, over time, we want to keep adding more options. So our goal is not to just stop with one or two insurers. I want to have 3, 4, 5 insurance options by next year, because what that allows us to do is actually shop on behalf of our customer. So a quote comes in and we're literally able to send that out to all 5 and say, hey, who's willing to give our customer the best option? Whereas with Hodinkee, this is an ancillary revenue stream for them, right? This is not their life bread and butter. For us, this is all we do. And so we're going to continue to innovate on insurance, add lots of new features, things like, hey, if you have something stored in a bank vault, for example, you can get a rate that's almost 1/5 of what the actual rate is because you're storing in a bank vault. And then within our app, if you ever went to the bank and took that out, you would just press one button to say, hey, I've taken my watch out of my bank vault. I'm going to wear it for 2 weeks. And then you go put it back in there, you click another button. And now we've only charged you for 2 weeks worth of premium when that watch was out of a bank vault. So there's innovations on the technology side, as well on the insurance side, that we're just going to keep iterating on. Whereas I think with them, this is just one more way to make some more money, which is totally fine. I think that for the average sort of long tail watch guy who's just bought a couple of watches or has bought something from Hodinkee, being able to jump in and quickly buy insurance makes total sense. But for someone who has, and I'll let Will jump in here because he hasn't spoken yet, since he was probably blackout drunk last night. But he's someone who has tested out all options and recently ended up buying Wax. But Will, if you want to unmute yourself, would love to hear. One of the questions I asked the group before this was, what is the thing that you are worried about the most when you buy insurance. What is the use case for which you ended up insuring your watches?
Right. So I want to be clear that my blackout night was Friday, and last night I was in bed by 11 o'clock. I just had some child-based scheduling issues this morning that threw me for a loop. So my apologies for being a little behind. But Vasu's right. I have been collecting for about 6 or 7 years, and not a huge collector, but a decent collection, usually around 5 to 8 watches. And I've lived in a neighborhood where I kind of felt secluded and didn't feel like I needed to mess with insurance for some period of time. And then as the value of the collection grew, started to make a little less sense to not have any protection. So I started investigating with our home and auto carrier, which is Farmers. And the process was just super cumbersome, a huge pain to deal with, to add watches, to subtract watches. I trade watches a lot. So coming in and out of a policy with 1 or 2 watches a couple times a quarter is just kind of a pain in the butt. So dealing with appraisals and all those different things made it just kind of daunting. So I ended up never really getting into a position where we had our collection insured. And that includes jewelry as well. It's just as cumbersome. And we're not art collectors or shoe collectors, but the value add of wax, taking care of things like that is a pretty incredible add-on that I think most competitors are not focused on at all. And gets even more into the dark world of valuation and things like that make it really complex. So when I looked into wax, I was actually kind of in a state of flux in my collection as well, where I was moving some pieces out to bring a big piece in, and basically got quotes for both scenarios, and just super, super simple. From my perspective, I have some watches that are on the lower end of value, and then 1 or 2 large pieces. And so for me, the deductible is really important. Having a high deductible on a watch where I'm paying $2,000 to replace a $6,000 watch is kind of a pain in the ass. Whereas I don't care if my premium is a little higher, if my out of pocket when my collection gets pilfered by somebody is on the low end. So the flexibility of moving deductible around with wax was super simple for me. They gave me half a dozen different options, and if you buy a safe, we'll bring your premium down even more. It actively helped me get a better deal through the process. So the interface is incredible. The lack of need for bouncing around and getting verified pictures and appraisals is just it's as seamless as it gets. And I haven't messed with the actual interface on Hodinkee, but have a couple of buddies who priced out some things just to get a feel for pricing. And to me, the price comparison is wax just blowing them away. I have a friend who asked about a 3700 that he has, a Nautilus 3700, with an insured value for 95 grand, and they came back with a quote for $4,000. That's more than the $150,000 or $160,000 collection that I have insured with wax by a factor of 2. Granted, I'm in Texas, we have different rates, but this is a meaningful needle mover for me. That price difference is astronomical. If my collection was in New York City, I'd probably be paying 4 times more than what I'm paying right now. So I think that's a fantastic setup.
Great, thank you for that, Will. I have a couple more questions. We obviously go over time a little bit. So we'll just have a couple more minutes here. So a couple of folks are asking, one person asked, when you say U.S. resident, does that include someone that lives in the USA on a work visa, but they don't have a green card?
I believe so. I'm happy to double, triple check if they wanted to come in the system.
Okay. Do you offer discounts for TL rated home safes, or offer different coverage options for watches that are in their safe much more often than they are worn?
Yep, we do.
Okay. Let's see. John is asking, he said last he checked, wax hadn't been cleared to insure in all 50 states. Are you now in all 50 states?
We're not in all 50 states. We're in about, I think, 15 or 16, but we're literally adding states every week. And so you still come in. By the way, the app still gives you value even until we are live. So you can take pictures of your watches, basically create an archive, a digital archive of them. There's value in the app. And then the minute we go live in your state, we shoot you a notification that says, hey, we're ready to go now. And so my hope is by Q1 of next year, we'll be live in just about every state.
Okay. So jumping over to what's on screen right now, we have a question about the marketplace and escrow services and how that works.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give the community, you know, this is sort of confidential. We don't share this with anyone else, but just because the community helped us build this, I wanted to share where we're going with this, right? So a couple of things. One, I want everyone to be able to share in the upside here, which means we can't do this today because today we're just an agency and we work with another insurance carrier in the back end, but we're moving towards becoming a risk-bearing entity ourselves. And once we do that, what it means is we keep all of the premium, we can invest that premium, and at the end of the year, if there's money left over because our customers were very safe with their things and there were no claims filed, we can actually share that profit back with our customers and say, hey, here's a little dividend check almost for having been a good customer. So that's the first thing that I want to be able to do. And that's hopefully in the next year or two, we'll get to that point. A lot of regulatory hurdles to do that. The second thing is, you know, there's billions of dollars tied up in watch collections and other collections, and there's no way to get liquidity out of them, right? You either have to just sell the watch entirely or you sit on it and you can't do anything with that money. So what I'm trying to do is also help people unlock the value of their collections in allowing you to borrow money collateralized against your collection value, potentially just sell a fractional part of your watch. So if you have a chronometer blue that you bought for $17,000 and now it's worth $40,000, could you potentially sell off to the rest of the community 20% of that watch? They're essentially owning a part of your watch. Now, eventually when you sell it, you're sharing the profit with everyone else. Meanwhile, you're getting some liquidity up front. So I think there's some really cool things that we can do around that stuff. The third thing is a marketplace, right? I think everyone knows Chrono24 kind of sucks. It is just where everyone goes today. And so to the extent that people who have already insured their items with us could list them for sale, and other people within our vetted group of insurance customers can look at what they have and buy and sell them, I think that makes a ton of sense. It keeps all the randos from the internet from jumping in, because some random guy isn't going to buy insurance just to be able to scam someone on our marketplace. And then the last thing is, you know, we're trying to make insurance cheaper, and that starts with two things: safes and security systems. If people have those two things, we can make their insurance premium come down. And on the flip side, we make it a lot more safer for our insurance partners to actually insure people. And so we're starting to work with safe manufacturers and security system manufacturers to try to figure out a plan in which when somebody comes to Wax to buy insurance, we can actually place a safe into their home for the duration of their policy. And that makes it safer for everyone, and it makes it cheaper for everyone. So that's sort of where we're headed with this. And so as you can see, you know, we're laser focused on making this the best possible solution out there. So yeah, other people will build products around this, no doubt, because they have an audience, but I don't think that they're going to spend the time and effort like we are to really dig into the things that collectors want and be focused on it for the next 5 years, really.
Okay, and we have one last question, and then we're out of time. So a question from Jeffrey. He'd like to know if there is a referral code from this webinar.
Yes, so everyone can use the code RedBar, 6 characters, RedBar. Pop it into the app when you download it, and then we'll know that you're part of the RedBar community.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I am actually, to Will's point, you know, he mentioned art collections and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, like I have my art collection is insured, you know, along with my homeowner's insurance. I have a valuable personal articles policy attached to that. But, you know, it would be really handy to have that all visible in one place, you know, like my handbags and my, you know, all the other bullshit I collect besides watches. So that made me think about stuff. So, you know, I'll be in touch very soon, Vasu. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Thanks for the folks we didn't get to your questions. I will send them over to Vasu and we will get those answers to you after the event. And then we'll be back at 11 a.m. with the independence panel. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys. See you.